Tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare two of the softwares that I use for retirement planning. I'm going to compare Bolden, which used to be called New Retirement, with Right Capital, which is primarily what I use, and we'll get into why. So let's just jump right into it. The cost structure is Right Capital. You pretty much you have to be a financial advisor to get it because it's $150 a month if you want to buy it, which clearly is out of most of our range. So you have to get it through a financial advisor. So I give you in the description a place you can go where the company called Root offers it for $300 one time, just a one time fee, and you can get it that way. Bolden, on the other hand, is more retail centric to just regular people, and so, but it's $150 a year. So when you get it, you buy it, but it's $150 subscription every year. Okay, so let's talk about it real quick. So let's just dive into what they're both good, what they're good at, and what they're not good at. So one of the things that Bolden is really good at is multiple scenarios. So they both pieces of software do this kind of initial check. Your net worth, your probability of success using a Monte Carlo. The kind of stuff you'd expect. Net worth over time, et cetera, et cetera. You can see they both have that kind of thing going on. But one thing that it's very good at is it allows you to take a plan and essentially copy it into the scenario manager. So that's all aspects of the plan. There's a few that aren't, like I think birth dates and people and things like that, but almost 90% of it is adjustable. So this is really great for stress testing, right? So you'll see the example here. I did one where my wife died early versus my base plan and looked at it. So this is great where you can do all sorts of different variables with this and figure it out. And you could do 10. I could do Beth dies early, Steve dies early, Social Security is cut by 20%. My investments return 30% less. Like there's just up to 10 different scenarios and you can compare them, which is really strong. It's really good. Whereas Right Capital, essentially what you're getting is your current plan and a proposed plan. And you can change any of the variables that you've put in to get the probability of success. So that clearly is not as strong as Bolden. Bolden does a great job. And you'll even see, I'm going to get into some stress testing stuff, not in this video, but in a future video. And you'll see Bolden is really good at doing the stress testing. Okay, let's go to the next one. Track your current expenses. So one of the things, so that's positive for Bolden. One of the things that's a positive for Right Capital is that they have the ability to essentially, you can link stuff in Bolden too, but you can link stuff to your accounts, like your credit cards, your checking account, your bank accounts, etc., and you can track the budget. So in Right Capital, you have two things, right? You have projections, which is what you put in for what you think you're going to be spending in all the future years and stuff, and then you can copy those projections into a budget. And then what you can do is you can every month or every year, whatever, you can compare what you're bringing in to those categories. So that becomes a real strong point, right? Because it's not enough just to plan. At some point, you have to say, listen, I planned for this year, but am I doing what I said I was going to plan for? So I use this budgeting a lot, and you'll see the transactions come in, and I have a whole video on budgeting, but basically Right Capital gives you the ability to track, which I think is so important for software to do, to monitor the progress, not just say are you successful, but to monitor that progress as the years go by. I haven't seen anything like that in I haven't seen anything like that in Bolden where I could connect it. Like they give you the ability to put in expenses and things like that, but nothing where linking to your account and being able to assign stuff, and actually match projection to actual. That's what you're doing in the budget. You're saying this is what I projected, what actually happened, and they're two different things. So that's a big plus on the Right Capital side that Bolden doesn't have. Okay, here's the number one reason why I use Bolden, but I don't use it 90% of the time. I use it for what it's good at, is the details. So if you look at Bolden and you come down here and you look at like income versus expenses, let's say I make a mistake. Everybody's going to make mistakes. You're going to put something in wrong. You're going to put it in going to the wrong year. Maybe you do something wrong with your tax situation, like anything could happen. You need the ability to really drill down and see what's going on. Well, one of the biggest problems, I actually sent Bolden an email with this and through their help desk support, which their help desk is exceptionally good, which is really bad in Right Capital because technically you are not the person who paid for it. Um, is like you go here, for example. So this says in 2042, I'm going to have 22,000 medical expenses and I'm going to have 113,000 in general reoccurring. Well, what are those expenses? You can't get them. Like you can't get the detail. You can put in the detail. So if you go into expenses in healthcare and you go into expenses. Now, if you use the free version, you get this really lame basic thing, which doesn't do different times and things like that. But if you pay the 150, which is what you should do really, is you get this ability to actually edit it. So you hit edit and you can actually edit. So they support the ability to put all this stuff in, which is really great. They put a must spend, like to spend versus Right Capital, which just gives you one number. But the problem is you can never see those numbers beyond this screen. Like I want to know how much is my shoes and clothing, which is a bit ridiculous when I look at this, but shoes and clothing in 2064 or 2030 with inflation, and you'll never get that. Because it lumps all these categories into the one, which makes it almost impossible when you make mistakes to find those mistakes. So whereas if you go to Right Capital, and believe me, I found mistakes. I'm not with the software, but with me, and you're going to get them too. You can go to cash flows, retirement cash flows, which I tell everyone to go to. And you can go to this summary and you can actually get down all the way down to the detailed expenses. It houses them all under other expense. But you can see, now I can see all my, so if I make a mistake in one of these, it just jumps right out and I can find it. Like if I did a keying error and all of a sudden this is like $6,000-7,000 more a year. Like let's say my vacation, my Wildwood family vacation, I accidentally, instead of putting in 3,600, I put in 6,300. It would be very difficult to find that outside of going through that huge screen. But in here, it just jumps right out. So that is the primary reason why I use Right Capital is it the ability to really get to the detail level is much better than in Bolden. And I mean, and Bolden's the one I got first. Okay, so what's the next one here? Oh, so here's something that's really cool in Bolden. In Bolden, you can go in and set your own rates. So in Bolden, you can actually go in and for your accounts and assets and things like that, you can actually go in and set your optimistic and pessimistic return rates. Oh, that's not what I want. Let's see, where are you, Steve's 401k? Yeah, so you'll see I have optimistic return and pessimistic return. So I know what this portfolio is about. And so I give it the optimistic and pessimistic rate of return, which is great. That's another great thing about Bolden is you can actually tell it I want to run when I run my Monte Carlos, do I want to run using optimistic, average, or pessimistic? And obviously, an average is going to be the midpoint between the optimistic and the pessimistic. That is really cool. And I find that to be very a great strength of Bolden, but it doesn't override the detail stuff. So, but what you do in Right Capital is in Right Capital, the person who's hosting this for you, in other words, the person who's spending the 150 a month, the financial planner. In my case, it's up here, Heritage Wealth Planning. In your case, it'll be Root, because in the detail of description I have, there's a link to go there. And by the way, subscribe to my channel. Someday, if I get enough subscribers, I'll offer Right Capital free for everyone, and then if it draws 150 a month, because I think everyone should have it. So in Right Capital, what you have to do is you're at the discretion of the person paying the bills to set the rate. So they'll set a rate for what is the average rate of return for bonds? What is the average rate of return for large cap, small cap? They're going to define the classes and they're going to put your investments into those classes and then they're going to assign. So I know Heritage Wealth Planning is very conservative. He's really conservative. And Root is really conservative too. So I think you're in good hands, but it's a disadvantage. You can't control your own rates. The Roth Conversion Explorer is really straightforward in Bolden. You just basically go to the Roth Conversion Explorer and ask it to do its thing. So you can just go down, and they're pretty good at this, right? Because they're more about a person just buying their product, where Right Capital is more about a financial advisor kind of walking you through their product. So let's see here what I got here. Explorers. I'm looking for the Roth stuff. There's IRMA. Um, Required distributions, required withdrawals. Let's see here. So, oh, here we go. So they have a Roth Conversion Explorer. You say, I want to do a Roth IRA. You go to continue. You decide what's your objective. Let's say my objective is to fill the tax bracket. So I go, hey, I want to fill up to a 22% tax bracket. I'm not going to get into all this because, this is just bold. And what it'll do is it'll put together that Roth plan for you, and when your withdrawals are, what effect it has on your plan. I don't quite get this. Oh, this is just my estate value. It says it's going to be 1,275,000. I don't know how it's possible, but I could have just said, I don't look at these that much. Um, See, how can my taxes be higher, but my estate value is more? So whatever. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time using this. Not this particular thing. I'm going to go back and do a video on it. But their Roth Conversion Explorer is pretty good. Whereas if you go into Right Capital, it's also pretty good. It's just not the same. So if you go to tax and tax strategies will give you, you go to calibration. And so it gives you the income tax brackets that you're in. So you can see I'm in these income tax brackets based on what I put into Right Capital. And then what you can do is you can say, hey, I want you to fill up the tax bracket with Roth conversions. So I tell it, fill up the tax bracket up to 12 and 15%. I hit refresh and it'll fill up the tax bracket for me. See this green? That's where it's filling up. And then if you go to tax flow accounts, there it shows you where you do with your withdrawals and things like that. So in general, they both do it, but Bolden does a little better job of holding your hand. Um, okay, Bolden has great help desk. You just go in, there's a little help button, and they're very responsive. Whereas if you do this, well, you're going to do this. You should do this. This is how I do it. You don't really got to get a lot of help. Like when you buy this stuff, like the root stuff that I give you in the link of the description of this, they have a little training course that you go through. But I talked to a friend of mine, and he said it's not great. It's like a nice little starter, but that's just how it is. You're gonna have to earn it. You're gonna have to learn it a little more. You're not gonna be able to just help out. The good news is I'm trying to put the videos together that you can watch that'll help you with this. Um, okay, Right Capital. If the host stops using it, we're hosed. So just quite bluntly, if Heritage Wealth Capital decides to stop paying that $150 a month, then I'm going to lose my planning software. That's a risk I'm willing to take. He's been around forever. I think he would give everyone tons of warning before he did it, so we could jump off to Bolden. But for the most part, I keep both my numbers in here. Whereas with Bolden, your only risk is if the company goes under. IRMA, the Medicare premium stuff, it's the same kind of thing. Like when you go into Bolden, well, we'll go into here. I think in this you can say, let's see, is there an IRMA? Hold on. Oh, Medicare, yeah, it's right here. Medicare premium tax brackets. So you can look at your Medicare premium tax bracket and say, hey, how am I going to fill that up? I mean, I have to look at this a little more. It's generally not a problem for me because I'm not going to make that much money. The Medicare premium tax bracket is like 500 grand or something ridiculous like that. Look, if I'm making, what does it give me the number? Oh yeah, you look here where it shows the green dot there. The green dot says you'll pay $88 more a month if you are making $225,000 a year when you're 76. I'm not going to be I'm just not going to be making that much money a year. So it's generally not a problem for me, but it's all in that same screen. It's tax strategies calibration, where I think Bolden, since they're generally Bolden isn't considered, they're trying to just appeal to every normal user. You should be, oh yeah, see, they have a little IRMA thing here, and you can just do the IRMA this way. So I think IRMA is probably a little better at handling, even though, you know what, maybe not, because IRMA it's not telling me how to do it, actually. It's not like Roth. Like Roth gives you it actually tells you here's where to take your conversions and stuff. Whereas I don't think it's really doing that here. Oh, here's we go. See if Roth conversions can help you avoid IRMA. So by taking out Roth conversions, now in the future you reduce your income, and so therefore it helps your IRMA. So I guess that's how they're doing it. They're kind of doing it through the back door with Roth, which is a legitimate way to do it. So it's all boiling down to that Roth. But I would say in general that it's probably, Bolden just in general makes things a little easier. Um, let's look at this. This is kind of cool, right? When you're doing your expenses, we talked about this. You have a must spend versus a like to spend. So Right Capital doesn't have that. Right Capital just says, hey, you have two basic options, right? When you go to retirement, come on, come on, come on. When you go to retirement and then you go to right here, you basically have your current plan, which is this, and your proposed plan, and you can change the variables in that plan. I mean, granted, you could change any of these variables anytime you want, but if you're for comparison purposes, you're trying to leave one alone and just make change, you can do that right here, make changes to the other one. Whereas what we've already talked about is in Bolden, it's just a lot more flexible. So instead of just having one bucket that says whatever, let's go down here, house gas, you could actually have, or a better example, you probably vacation. Yeah, like vacation, let's say. What you can do, you can only say vacation in in uh, in Right Capital, but in Bolden, you can actually go in. I think I already showed you this, but it's okay. It only take a second. In Bolden, you can actually go into the detailed budgeter and say, hey, here's for vacation, like lawn and garden, for example. I said, listen, if things got really bad, I can always do it myself. So must spend is 0, like to spend is 40. That's cool. And then when you run the analysis, which I already showed you, when you run the analysis, you can change what you want. Do I want the optimistic, the pessimistic, or do I want um, let's see, detail, like to spend or must spend. Those are so that's really cool. Again, not enough to rock my boat and make me change, but I do have both of them. Okay, so let's talk about reports and charts, etc. So you're not going to get a lot of reports and charts out of Right Capital. I know they have them, but I think the primary purpose of them is, I think the typical model for Right Capital with a financial planner is the financial planner gives them access to this. They go in, fill all this out, and then the financial planner goes in and runs all the reports and prints them out for them. And then they can look at all these reports. So they don't provide a lot of reports. The primary, you see stuff like this. This is what you see most of the time, like a bar telling you how many assets that you'll have at the end of the plan, percentages, things like that. Your biggest chance for like data export is they'll give you an option, and I use this in cash flows where you can export in this little button. So you can export at any level. I could go into my income flows and say export that, go to Social Security, export that. There's not a lot of reports, not a lot of charts, not a lot of subtotaling, nothing like that. Whereas you can see with Bolden, even in some of the stuff, but it's not at the detail level I need. So that was always the problem. Like, great, you're telling me all this stuff, but when I really want to figure something out, it didn't seem to help me. But you get this stuff. You get a lot of this kind of stuff, which is really cool. It says, hey, here's the age, here's your spouse, here's how much you're getting. And they have all sorts of, essentially, like all these things are reports. Savings balances, withdrawals. You can get all this same information, but you get it differently. You get it like less fancy. So you can go to accounts and you can say, hey, I want to know the ending balance of all my accounts. Well, that's the account. So I want to see withdrawals. So if you're trying to figure out what withdrawals you have to make from what accounts, you have to do it through here, which I'll do that as a video, like how do I know how much to withdraw and that kind of stuff. So you can see one is really nice, one is really pretty, but doesn't drill down. One is less nice, less pretty, but you get absolute drill down functionality at a very small granular level. Okay, let's look at this one. Oh, this is kind of cool. So what Bolden does for you is it gives you these blind spot reminders, like progress, like how are you doing? Let's see if I can find it. Is it in the summary? Yeah. So see, it has all this, like, have you recorded all your income sources? Have you done the money flows? It'll even give you like little things saying, hey, I think you may have made a mistake here. It gives you little messages. Like, it's just really geared for a person, which is awesome. that needs their hand held. And there's nothing wrong with that. To be honest with you, what I'm hoping to do, my whole channel is to kind of be that hand holder for you in Right Capital. Um, because I just love Right Capital. But like I said, I used Bolden for a couple of years too. So it does a lot more of that. Right Capital, you don't get any of that. If you screw it up, you make a mistake, you're going to have to find that mistake, which everybody makes a mistake sometime. My friend had, I think that when you use Root, it creates a generic expense called retired expenses. And he put his money in there, and then he also put in all the detailed expenses. So it was basically double booking. He was saying, "Oh, I spend 40,000 a year on retirement," and then he was going in and putting in all the details of that retirement, which added up to 40,000. So Right Capital thought he was spending 80,000 a year when he was really only spending 40. And I had to find that number for him and say, "You got to get rid of that thing because you're double booking. You're killing yourself for a chance of success." So he had, like expenses. He had like two things here. He had something that was retirement and whatever. So just bear in mind, you don't get that, the hand holding that you get from Bolden, because Bolden's really good at that. Let's see. That was this, gives you the blind spots, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The outcomes seem to be close. Like mine are a little off, but they're not that far off. And if you look, I have a 95% chance of success. It says at longevity, all of 627,000. Whereas if you go to the summary of here, in Right Capital, come on, Right Capital, do your thing. You'll see it says more like this. This ends with a lot more. It's just because it's probably outdated. So the probability of success here says 97% for my proposed plan, 88%. So I'm in the ballpark, 88, 95. They're close. And like I said, it's probably just because Bolden is a little bit off because I haven't been maintaining it as well. When I was maintaining these two things spot on, like I used to do them both. Every time I would do something, I would do something in Bolden, and I've been doing a lot of things for videos and stuff too. Um, they would be pretty much the same. So I use them to test each other to make sure they kind of look right. But both these solutions are way better than your own spreadsheets. I have a massive spreadsheet too, which I guess I can show you. This was my spreadsheet. While that's opening up, we'll go to the next point. I don't want to update. So I actually wrote my own spreadsheet. Oh, come on. Let's do this. And I kept all the tax rates. I did like all this stuff. I don't know why Excel's doing that here. Let's see if we can get to it. And basically, and this is before I started using Bolden. I created this huge spreadsheet that did pensions, when you die, inflation, what's your savings rate. I can even adjust percentages of spend over time because as you get older. So I did all this and it was pretty good. But the bottom line is if I made one mistake on a cell or something like that, it sent the whole thing off into Never Never Land. So don't do this. Like this is really cool, but don't do it. Let's go back to this. Oh yeah, so we already kind of covered this. There's no real printable stuff. You just export to Excel and Right Capital. There's better printing because you can print your full plan. So if you wanted to give your plan to someone else, like another financial planner, you could literally print the whole thing off and then go into the financial planner with it. And he could review it, so that's really cool. All right. So at the end, where do I come out? So here's where I come out at the end. I love Right Capital. I think it's better. I think it holds your hands less. So you have to be very detailed with it. You have to be very cautious. You have to triple, quadruple check everything, but the functionality is just generally much better. So what do I use Bolden for? You're going to see in some videos I'm going to use Bolden to kind of stress test my plan. So there is stress testing in Right Capital, but it's just, I don't know, it's just not that great. I think we even looked at this. Like if you go to stress test, they give you these little bars showing you, like what your probabilities are and if you change stuff. So right now my proposed is 97, but if Social Security is reduced by 10%, then my plan goes down to 86.2. Like, I don't know. This doesn't seem very helpful because I can't even adjust it. Like I can't go in and say, well, if Social Security goes down, then maybe I'll reduce my spending by $5,000 a year or something. And will that help? Whereas you can do all that with Bolden because they're separate plans. Um, so that's what I'm going to use Bolden for, quite frankly. I'm going to use Bolden to stress test. So one of the videos I'll do will be on stress testing, like real stress testing. And you'll see that I use Bolden for that, but because it's pretty good. But before I do that, I'm going to have to make sure that the two outcomes match. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that all my data matches and everything, and that the outcomes are within 1 or 2% match. And then I will create different strategies and stress test different scenarios, and I'll share a video with that. So at the end of the day, for me and for all my videos, I'm probably going to spend 95% of my videos in Right Capital. I think it's better software. Like I said, if I get 1,000 people to subscribe to my channel and I get 4,000 and I make and I don't need to do this. This is not in my agenda. I'm just saying one of the cool byproducts would be, I kind of thought about this a couple months ago, is that if I could generate $150 a month off my channel, then I would get Right Capital as a financial planner kind of aspect, and I would literally offer it to everybody who wanted it for free, since I use it so much. So, but I'm a long ways away from that. I have 89 subscribers. I need to get 1,000, and I need whatever to monetize. So I don't need to monetize for my retirement, but it would be good. I could offer it free to everybody then. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your time. You're going to have to do what you want to do and what's important, but don't forget to subscribe and have a great night. Thanks again for spending time with me.